Imagine a world so cold that the air itself freezes and falls to the ground like snow. A world so far from the sun that noon looks darker than midnight on Earth. A world that has been drifting alone through the outer edge of the solar system for 4.5 billion years, waiting. That world is Pluto. And once you understand what is actually out there, you will never look at the night sky the same way again. For decades, we barely knew Pluto existed. It was discovered in 1930 by a 23-year-old farm boy named Clyde Tombaugh, who spent months comparing thousands of photographic plates looking for a tiny dot that moved. When he finally found it, the entire world celebrated a new planet, the 9th member of our solar system family. Then, in 2006, scientists stripped it of that title. Pluto was demoted. It was reclassified as a dwarf planet. The solar system had a new family of 8, and Pluto was left out in the cold, literally. But here is what most people never think about. We did not truly see Pluto until 2015. For 85 years after its discovery, Pluto was just a blurry dot, a mystery hiding in the dark. We had no idea what was actually there. Then the New Horizons spacecraft flew past it at over 50,000 kilometers per hour. And what it sent back changed everything. What scientists saw was not a dead, barren rock. It was something far stranger. The first thing that shocked scientists was the color. Pluto is red. Not uniformly red, but patchwork, rust-colored regions, pale white plains, dark crimson mountain ranges. It looks like a bruised, frozen heart hanging in the void. That heart shape is not a metaphor. On the surface of Pluto, there is a massive, pale region shaped almost perfectly like a heart. Scientists named it Tombaugh Regio, after the man who found the planet. It is roughly the size of Texas and Oklahoma combined. It is made almost entirely of nitrogen ice. Nitrogen, the same gas you breathe. Out here, at the edge of the solar system, it is solid. But that is just the beginning. Beneath that icy heart, scientists discovered evidence of something that should be impossible this far from the sun. A possible subsurface ocean. That is not even the strangest part. Let us talk about cold. Real cold. Not the kind you feel on a winter morning. The surface temperature on Pluto averages around -230 degrees Celsius. That is colder than liquid nitrogen. That is so cold that if you poured gasoline onto the surface, it would shatter like glass. At those temperatures, matter behaves in ways that seem physically impossible. Gases become solids. Nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide do not float through the air on Pluto. They freeze directly onto the surface. When Pluto gets slightly closer to the sun on its elliptical orbit, those ices slowly sublimate, rising up to create a thin, ghostly atmosphere. Then, as Pluto swings back out into the dark, the atmosphere collapses. It literally snows nitrogen. The sky falls. The entire atmosphere of a world rises and falls like breathing. Once every 248 Earth years, Pluto breathes. And that thin atmosphere does something else no one expected. It glows blue. When sunlight hits the haze layers around Pluto, the particles scatter blue light back into space. Scientists were stunned. A world at the edge of nothingness, wearing a blue halo. Hauntingly beautiful, impossibly alien. But beauty out here has a price. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You are standing on the surface of Pluto. The ground beneath your boots is a mix of frozen nitrogen and methane ice, pale and slick. In the distance, mountains of water ice rise over 3,000 meters into the sky. They should not exist. Water ice on Pluto is as hard as rock because of the cold. And these mountains formed somehow, billions of years ago, from forces scientists still do not fully understand. You look up. The sun is there. You can see it. But it does not look like our sun. It looks like an extremely bright star, a brilliant point of light, maybe 1,000 times dimmer than what you feel on Earth. It casts long, faint shadows. Everything around you is draped in a perpetual twilight. You check your suit. The external temperature reads negative 220 degrees Celsius and dropping. Your suit is working hard, pumping heat just to keep you from freezing solid in minutes. You look around and realize something. There is no sound. The atmosphere is so thin, about 100,000 times thinner than Earth's, that sound cannot travel. You are surrounded by absolute silence. You could scream and hear nothing. And then you look up at the sky and see the real source of terror on Pluto. Not the cold, not the silence, the loneliness. The nearest star beyond the sun is over 4 light years away. Earth is 5.5 billion kilometers behind you. You are standing on a world that drifts in near total darkness, alone, at the edge of known space, in a region called the Kuiper Belt, surrounded by billions of icy rocks and barely any light at all. This is what it means to be truly alone in the universe. Here is where it gets deeply unsettling. Pluto takes 248 Earth years to complete one orbit around the Sun. That means a single Pluto year is longer than the entire history of the United States of America, longer than the Industrial Revolution, longer than everything that has happened since humans first landed on the Moon, multiplied by nearly 3. Pluto has not even completed a single orbit since the moment it was discovered in 1930. It never will. Not in your lifetime, not in your children's lifetimes, not for another 200 years. But here is the fact that should stop you cold. Scientists believe Pluto may have a liquid water ocean hidden beneath its frozen surface. It could be kept warm by radioactive decay deep within the planet's core, in an environment where the surface temperature is nearly 230 degrees below zero, where the sun is barely a bright star, where the air freezes and falls from the sky. There might be liquid water. And if liquid water exists on Pluto, the rules of life in our solar system are completely rewritten. Because if life can find a way to exist on Pluto, it can exist anywhere. Pluto is not just a scientific curiosity. It is a window. Before New Horizons, we thought the outer solar system was dead space, frozen, empty, irrelevant, a graveyard of rock and ice left over from the formation of the planets. What we found instead was a dynamic, geologically active world with mountains, plains, haze layers, flowing nitrogen glaciers, and possibly an ocean older than any ocean on Earth. That changes everything. The Kuiper Belt, where Pluto lives, contains hundreds of similar objects. Small worlds, dwarf planets, bodies we have never visited, never photographed up close, never truly understood. Each one is a frozen archive of the early solar system, preserving conditions from 4.5 billion years ago. Studying Pluto helps us understand not just where the solar system came from, but where life itself might be hiding. The universe, it turns out, is full of small, cold, lonely worlds, and we are only beginning to learn their secrets. Here is the thought that will stay with you tonight. Pluto is not the only world like this. Beyond Pluto, deeper into the Kuiper Belt and beyond, there are worlds we have barely detected. Eris, Makemake, Sedna. Sedna has an orbit so extreme that it takes 11,400 years to circle the sun just once. Scientists believe there may be a massive, undiscovered planet lurking in the far outer solar system, something they call Planet 9, gravitationally tugging on objects like Sedna from the absolute darkness beyond. We have not found it yet. But the math says it is there. Something old, something enormous, something we have never seen, something waiting at the edge of everything we know. And if we are only now discovering what Pluto truly is after 90 years of looking at it, what else is out there that we have not even begun to understand? The universe is bigger, colder, and stranger than any of us imagined. And the scariest part is not the darkness. It is the fact that we are only just beginning to look. If you want to keep exploring the most terrifying and awe-inspiring places in the cosmos, subscribe and hit the bell. Every week we go somewhere new, somewhere colder, stranger, and more mind-bending than the last. The universe is waiting. Let's go.